As far as the fluidity of a day one's agenda goes, call it crazy, beautiful if you like, but for various reasons we need to be shuffling different presentations and change the original timing. And so here today with us, let's welcome Michalina Konkel, representing Diversity Hub, Director DEI, Organizational Development. Hello, Michalina.
Hello, Lukas. Hello, Sandra. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you with us. Well, in this presentation, we talk about the key challenges for ongoing D&I management in a business setting. Michalina, first things first, tell us, how many strategies have you been involved with professionally along those lines?
For the last 2.5 years, me and our team in Diversity Hub, we have prepared around 20 different strategies and action plans for companies from really different industries, from IT to shared services to pharmaceutical companies to FMCG. So we really have a broad perspective, I would say, how this topic can be addressed in these companies.
Diversity is part of the name of the organization, so one should expect it's not just one sector. Michalina,
yeah, that's exactly it, Lukas.
For people who are relative beginners in developing such a strategy, what kind of document are we talking about, and how comprehensive, how sophisticated is that, the process and the document, the final document that you work on?
Say that it really depends on the
Don't forget, it's a forbidden
approach
phrase.
of the company. Sorry, can you repeat? Sorry.
Don't forget, it's a forbidden phrase at this conference. It depends.
It depends.
Yeah, it varies.
So if you,
oh, come on. Sandra,
if you're just starting with D&I and it is your local initiative, I would say that you can structure this document the way you really need. First of all, what you need to focus on, it's not only on dimensions, I would say, which are quite popular to be addressed. Dimensions, meaning like the quotas for women, quotas for people of color, or any other quotas which are in your organization. But it's really important also to focus in your strategy on the way how it will be, how the organizational culture will be changed. Because I would say that this is like the most common mistake which is taken, that preparing a strategy is treated as a project. It's like, okay, we start, we have a strategy, and okay, let's allow someone to do that. But it will not happen on its own. It is a really organizational change process.
Where do you start? Do you start with stakeholder mapping? Because we understand every organization needs to have a tailored process, prioritized needs and expectations, and it also should be, as we understand it, business relevant. So where do you start with your recommendations? Is it about mapping something? If yes, what?
Yeah, it's about it's mapping the areas which I would say mapping the current state of the organization. So the awareness of employees, to what extent are they aware of diversity and inclusion area? The second thing is about stakeholders, as you said. So who is really involved at the moment in the organization, this process, who is impacted by this process. The third area which should be addressed is connected with, I would say, all policies and procedures which support these aspects, as well as a leadership, I would say, a leadership layer in the organization. So all these areas should be researched. So the strategy will be relevant to what is really happening.
Mm-hmm. And given all of that diverse background of industries and sectors you have worked with, do you see any interesting trends while developing those strategies?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, we really noticed the higher level of competence of people who are taking care of this aspect. Because in the beginning, most of our clients, these were the companies which got got the order from headquarter to roll this down, and they didn't know anything about diversity and equity and inclusion. And nowadays, more people in HR are really aware of these aspects. They have bigger knowledge. What I've noticed as a trend is that they are also more aware that the responsibility for D&I is not on them, but also on leaders and managers in the organization on this frozen needle, usually the frozen needle. So in our products, what we have noticed that it's not as it used to be before, only our initiative to engage managing the directors and leaders in the organization, but it started coming from HR, so they are more and more aware.
So between the lines of what you're saying, Michalina, it's probably fair to conclude that in great many cases, those 3 years ago, it was a trend that D&I policies and solutions were originally cascaded from umbrella organizations without enough understanding initially why and what and how. So I would imagine the initial projects that you were engaged in were relatively more challenging, whereas now you're seeing a lot more understanding and much more mature approaches to implementing D&I. Is that true, or it's just my wishful thinking?
I would say yes. I would say yes and no. I would say that currently projects are more challenging because they are really even more adjust to the local cultures as it was before. So we, as in the consulting industry, we also have learned how to adjust it even more. So it's not only adjusting to the company, but sometimes even to depart. We are working with smaller and smaller, not entities, but the smaller groups in a given company. So this awareness demands much more work, and because of that, it raises the chances to be effective.
Mm-hmm. All right. We don't have any questions from the audience yet. Maybe you have a question for Michalina.
Well, I was actually wondering what will be your answer to the question for which Łukasz was pushing so much.
I'm never pushing for anything.
About mapping, right? And I was wondering what I would have said if that was a question for me. And what came to my mind was a clarity about motivations within the organization. How do you position that in the bigger spectrum of the process of developing a strategy, knowing why we are going to do what we're going to do?
So I would say that what we map, we are trying always to get to the I would say like a business case behind it. It's not always I'm using the phrase business case, but I believe motivation is better. But to work with the organization, what is really the reason behind? Is it because of, I would say, like the moral obligation that we really find this ethical? And we have cooperated with such companies that it was pure. This reason was really pure motivation to implement these changes. But we were also working with organizations for whom just a profit in the area of innovation was a main motivational factor. So according to this, we are adjusting. Strategy, and then also the measurements. Because I would say that talking about the trend, what we also notice is that more companies are approaching us because they cannot reach quotas. And it's not surprising, because these quotas were just, were just numbers, and they weren't based on any research.
Agreed.
So complex research is something what, of course, costs money and time, and in the same time, it allows to save a lot of time and money, which otherwise would be lost because the solutions will not be adjusted to
Michalina,
to the situation.
We have almost run out of time, unfortunately, but two quick questions. One is, what are the most common mistakes in your experience in developing this strategy? And just give us a list of what you come across most often. And the next question is, once you already have the document, what next?
Łukasz, you just told me that we almost ran out of the time and you were giving me two questions.
It's a big topic, but we have 2 days to explore that.
When it comes to mistakes, I would say I would name the biggest one, that some companies are treating D&I as a piece of cake, and it's not a piece of cake. Because very often it is HR who is rolling this out, and in the same time they are more aware that it's important to engage more various stakeholders in this process. And sometimes it happens that a person who's responsible for D&I has really very very little competence when it comes to project managing or managing at all. Even managing D&I team is a challenge for such person. And in my opinion, this is like the biggest mistake, to forget that this is, as I said before, organizational change process, and it demands these basic managerial competences to manage this process.
Exactly. So with this many misconceptions around it, you cannot even start the conversation what after the D&I strategy, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, we know from different statistics that strategy is only a beginning, and about 50 to 75% of strategies fell short at the long-term run. They are not delivered successfully.
Next time you quote a statistic, I might ask you about the source.
Thank you.
Careful there. Thank you so much, Michalina.
There's a book.
There's a book. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. And sorry for pre-scheduling the session again.
Sure. Thank you so much, and have a great day.